forgot to make my pointer bigger last time. So, 81st time to sit here with you, and I have questions for you. You can, those of you who are here right now, maybe you can just help me think this through. We have a youngster who 2 years ago, end of 24, came to help us in the garden along with a friend of hers. She's a Girl Scout. Her grandmother is the contact person, and her name is Peyton, and she seems to be pretty dedicated. She's now, this year, high enough up, she's doing an independent community project for a particular badge. And she proposed to us that she put in a pollinator garden down in that triangular bed that's at the far side of the parking lot from where our main gardens are, where we planted a couple of basswoods and some sumac, but haven't done anything down there. And we said that would be great. She talked to the library director, and they said, "Yep, that would be great," and arranged to use the community room yesterday to have a walk-ins welcome kids workshop where she would talk to kids about pollinator gardens and have them make a little kit. But something's happened here. When she got there yesterday, they hadn't let her put out any flyers for her little workshop, which was very disappointing. I can't understand why they wouldn't let her put flyers out. There's flyers for all kinds of other things. But worse than that, the bed down at the end of the road that should be the pollinator garden is now covered in rocks, and probably fabric underneath them. I had not heard anything, and they heard nothing. She heard nothing about it. I've been talking to her grandmother to say that maybe we can put her plants that she's already bought for the pollinator garden into the rain garden and rearrange that, and we could help her do that. But should I call the director and tell her that I'm kind of in the middle of this with the Girl Scout? Should I even be encouraging her to do stuff with us when we can't tell what's going to happen? Any thoughts on this? So
Hey, hi.
Hey, Margie.
I think talk to the director. It's too late now for that one spot. You know, they put the rocks there when they already agreed to let her do that. Maybe just go ahead and let her do her pollinator garden where you think it, and don't even ask them.
Oh, okay. Have her work just with us.
Yeah. Because from what I know, like you ask something and somebody in charge, their first answer is no. You know, just do it.
And you are someone who's been there lately.
Yeah, exactly.
Easier, and Nancy's saying easier to ask forgiveness than permission, and yet I'm so tempted to do that, to just say we're just going to go ahead and do this. But what if the Girl Scout comes by when she's by herself? I don't know. Maybe if I talk to her grandmother about it. I can't talk to her right now. I talked to her last night, but today she and her grandmother went up to Mackinac. She's at the governor's meeting. She's a part of the honor guard. These kids.
Wow.
So much stuff. Yeah, and she's got ambition and stick-to-itiveness, and I don't want to turn her off, but I don't want to get her in trouble with the authorities either.
Right. Yeah. Are there going to be a lot of Girl Scouts coming and working on this?
No, it's an individual project. This is kind of like when the Boy Scouts get to do their Eagle Scout project.
It's just her.
It's just her that one. Yep, it's just the one person. So.
Oh, well then, shoot, just let her do it.
Yeah, I think that makes it easier.
Yeah.
I'm going to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that. See if I can get everybody else to help her out a little bit too. She's got this list of plants that she's going to buy, and I thought, I don't think you're going to have to buy Monarda and I can't remember some of the other ones on the list, but I looked and they were plants that I bet everybody's got in their garden and they could bring pieces of for her to work with rather than buying plants. Okay, thank you. And yeah, easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission. It's true. What did we call it? Duck? Easier to duck than to step forward. Anyway, yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are at the end of June. How does it happen that suddenly it's summer? What a wonderful June it's been too. I cannot remember a June that was so long, cool, nice weather and with rain regularly, at least in our area. Can't remember when it last happened, and I don't even want to talk about it because it might jinx it, you know. I don't have much in this preliminary session. I wonder if I have anything in here. Except a couple pretty pictures, hoping that there are some questions from you. I have lots of things that I'm doing, but there are lots of little things, like trying to stay ahead of the crabgrass. Last year I waited too long on a couple areas where I knew there would be crabgrass, and I knew it, and boy, it grows so fast and gets so big so fast. That by the time I got to the crabgrass, they were 4 feet across and rooted at all their nodes, and but I was out there this morning and yesterday morning taking them out, and it was so easy. It was so easy. Yeah. So any questions? This is bear's britches, Acanthus mollis. Great plant. A beast of a plant. Bigger than a peony. And you do got to watch out for them throwing seedlings around because they can only take so many beasts in a garden. But a beautiful statement. And when it's done blooming, because the flower is actually the inside part here, this purple lid and the lip underneath are just modified leaves, and they stay there even when the flower is pollinated. So the form and the structure is still there for a long time on bear's britches. Oh, I did have something. This is, I think it was the last time that we were here. Someone had asked about clover versus oxalis. This is oxalis. One of the oxalis, that's probably tall wood sorrel, oxalis something or other. The others are clover and its relative black medic. I was at the friend's house where they have Thomas. Not a great picture, sorry, I had to blow up at one I had of him. Thomas is a desert tortoise. He's beautiful. He weighs about 100 pounds. He's about 20 years old now. He'll live to be well over 100. There's already an arrangement for him to go with the niece of the nephew of the current owner when that owner dies. He's in his 50s now. Anyway, Thomas was out, and I was talking to Thomas. He likes to have his shell scratched. You take a scrub brush and scratch his shell. He likes that feeling. He rubs back and forth. It comes to his name. And I was taking him some dandelions because he likes dandelions, and noticed that there was oxalis in the enclosure. And I mentioned to his owner, I said, I think that oxalis has oxalic crystals in it. I don't know whether reptiles can eat it, but I know if we eat it, it can make us pretty sick. Oh, I thought it was clover, he said. And he's not even a gardener, and he's calling it clover too. There's Thomas in his winter quarters. He lives in an enclosure with a heat lamp in the family room in the wintertime. He's a beautiful, beautiful beast. Just gorgeous. Oops, seemed to be going the wrong way. Moonshine yarrow just beginning to bloom. I can't capture the color. It's either too bright for the sun or too dim before the sun's up, but it's a great plant, moonshine yarrow. I was talking to Diane in Waterville about moonshine yarrow, and she pointed to her moonshine yarrow, and I said, it does have a light colored leaf, but the flower is already blooming, and it's such a brighter yellow. Moonshine really is a citronella kind of yellow color. And it got us to talking about plant varieties. Moonshine yarrow being one, another one, the original butterfly blue scabiosa, and the original, what's the short yellow coreopsis called? The tall one is Mrs. Somebody. Isn't that terrible? At any rate, when you buy them now, that's the variety name that you buy. They're not the same plant. I think over the years that someone was started propagating from a plant that was one-off, that was a bit of a variation from the original. And I'm afraid that the moonshine yarrow must have been that way. So if you admire a plant in somebody's garden, and it's one of those named varieties that's been around for a long time, you may be better off taking a piece from somebody to be sure you get the same thing than not. Just so that you know that we've certainly seen that with a couple of the famous plants. Moonbeam. Yes, that's right. It's moonshine yarrow and it's moonbeam coreopsis. Thank you very much, Nancy. Yeah, these names, they're good names, but better names than, what is that, lilac? Bloomerang? Oh, terrible name. And what was the other one? Boom chocolata something. Don't call the plant boom chocolata. That's just silly. Yeah, it is a different color entirely. So I'm going to take some pieces of this for you. There's certainly one that could come out of the garden. It's being eaten alive by the milkweed, the swamp milkweed. Okay. Yeah, I tried to capture the color, but it just was not a good day for taking pictures. Too bright or too dull. So welcome to Free for All Friday, where all gardeners are welcome to celebrate growing and cultivate problem solving. This is episode 81. It's June 26th of 2026. I'm coming to you from gardenataz.org. I'm Janet McConovich. Stephen Nicola just left today, thank goodness, for a fishing trip with his two brothers, our son, and our grandson. They're going up to a place in northern Ontario where they will be totally cut off from roads and everything else to fish for 5 days. And I think it's a wonderful experience. And it's also really good that they're finally on the road, because they have all those guys have been sorting tackle and talking fish and going out to get yet another thing from the sporting goods store for 2 weeks, to where you can't handle it anymore. So he won't be here tonight. I'll see what we can do with keeping up with things without. Do tell people about the website. I've certainly been there a lot lately, and I know that there is too much there, and sometimes it's hard to find, but it is good information. And if we can get links out to people and say, here's something you can read to learn about this, then that's good, because we need to share information. That's why we started the website, why we keep doing it. We just think people learn a lot talking to each other, whether they're neighbors or friends, whether it's on a Free for All Friday or something different. By the way, on Free for All Friday, on our Friday page, so if you go to gardenataz.org, on the home page, the menu, which is on those horizontal lines that indicate a menu if you're on your phone or an iPad, the menu that'll come up says Home, What's Up, Webinars and Workshops, Fridays, Book Club, and About Us, or on your laptop or desk computer like I'm on. It's right up front. If you click on Fridays, the link is always there for the meeting. If we should, it's been the same link all along, but if we should change it, we'll change it right there. So just in case we never get through to you, or you talk to somebody who'd like to join us but doesn't necessarily want to be on our mailing list, then tell them to go there. Just hit the link. Free for All Fridays. And I always open up early just so that I can get questions and things out of the way. Our Asclepias tuberosa, the orange milkweed or orange butterfly weed, is blooming away, and in several places in our yard is loaded with monarch caterpillars eating away. I'm always thrilled to see that. We started ours from a seed mix from Park Seed, where supposedly we're going to get some that are a little more yellow, some that are more orange, and some that are more red. And so far, they're kind of showing some differences in color. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to start off with deadheading, because that's what I've been doing a lot of right now. Deadheading, why do you do it? Well, this is penstemon. This is foxglove penstemon, Penstemon digitalis, and it's a variety with purple leaves. It might be dark towers, it might be plum pudding. It's kind of hard to remember which ones are which out there. But these are developing seed pods up here. And we deadhead for sometimes so that we don't get a zillion new plants. The penstemon happens to be growing primarily in our naturalized area, so we let it spread, but it does get into our other areas, and it does also flop forward into walking areas where the public goes by on the street next to us, and so I do deadhead to try to keep the numbers down and to keep it off of people's feet. I also deadhead for disease issues. It's too late for this peony. It's in a neighbor's yard. If we leave the peony flowers there, the dead petals fall. There's a couple here. And where they fall and cover the leaf, because the petal is dead tissue, it's wide open to infection by fungus, including the one called peony botrytis. And so this dead petal will lay on the leaf or on the stem, and cause the infection called botrytis to begin. And that works its way into the stem and down into the root. So if you can deadhead and get rid of all of the spent flower parts and any discolored leaf. I cut this peony almost to the ground. It won't hurt it. Even if you cut it right now, right down to the ground, it's not going to kill the peony, but it will keep the botrytis from descending into the root and reinfecting the plant the next spring coming up. It's also good to deadhead because, like at my son's house here, they really want their planters to be those lush, overflowing things, and they plant them themselves from small plants every year. But quite often they don't live up to the dream. Most of the time they don't live up to the dream because they don't deadhead. So I walk over and deadhead on a regular basis. It keeps the plants making more flower. It doesn't necessarily help plants that shouldn't be in the full sun, that are in the full sun, but it does make them a little bit better. Some of them are more tedious to deadhead. Oh dear, I've forgotten what this blue one is called. Someone is going to remember what this blue one's name is and tell me what it is. Did you? Oh, Nancy had to cut a peony all the way to the ground that looked bad. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's scary to do it, but believe me, it's okay. A few minutes later, your monarch caterpillar off of a milkweed was gone. We've seen that happen frequently, and there are two things that we think. One is that if you disturb it, quite often monarch caterpillars will curl up and fall off. It's just a defense mechanism, and so it's hiding at the base of the plant. The other is that they do get taken by birds. The birds have to learn not to eat them, and that means some birds have to eat some monarchs. So it's possible they've got eaten. I meant to bring in some caterpillars, some black swallowtail caterpillars one time, and I went out. I said, "Oh man, there's like 6 of them on this plant." Went inside to get my little bottle that I put them in. Came back and they were gone already because maybe the birds saw me looking at them. But some of these plants are tedious to deadhead, but it's worth doing it. It's worth cleaning them up to make them look better. This was my my key deadheading of this week. This is Amsonia. It's tall and beautiful. This is lavender mist meadow rue coming up to bloom behind it. At its tallest, in its best condition, lavender mist meadow rue will be about 6 feet tall. Here it'll be maybe 5 feet tall in our yard because we're dry soil. But it's only barely showing up over the Amsonia because the Amsonia is so tall and lush this year. Well, I forgot to deadhead it. I have before. I shouldn't because it's in my wilder area. It's out here with the staghorn sumac called tiger eye, and there it is in bloom. But I should have just, it's so easy to do right after it blooms, it just cut off the whole top of the plant so that those seed pods don't form, and then the new branches just come up and cover it. But I didn't do it for one reason or another. And now I have, and these are from last year's seeds, laying all over the ground. Those are all Amsonias, and I don't need another batch of 1,000 3.5 foot tall, 4 foot wide Amsonias. And it's not too late to cut it back any more than the peony. So the seed pods are inside here. I thought I had one that showed the picture of them. There, those are the seed pods back there. They're back about, in some cases, a foot back now from where the top of the plant is. But they're inside the plant and they're going to develop. So I'm going to take that top off. This is plant number 1, plant number 2, plant number 3. Watch plant number 1. That's it now. There are about 50 stems. I just grabbed them in handfuls and cut them down below where the seed pods were. And I can use them as mulch. I'm a little concerned about using them as mulch because sometimes when there's enough moisture left in that stem of a plant, even though the seed pod is not yet ripe, it can ripen by being in the sun and still having the moisture in the stem. So I'll have to watch that and make sure, but they make good mulch otherwise. And do be careful when you cut Amsonia or any of the other plants that have milky sap. So there's a drop of milky sap on each one. Many of these saps are irritants to your skin. Not that you would feel them right away, but if you get them on your skin and then you stay out in the sun, you can get burned. So do watch out if you cut Amsonia. I also deadheaded for reasons unknown even to me, I stuck a Campanula pascherskayana, it's called Serbian bellflower, at the corner of the rock area by the front door. I have a sentimental attachment to the plant. Maybe I just couldn't think of someplace else to put it, but I just put one plant there. And just about a month ago, it started blooming. 3.5 weeks ago, it was in full bloom. Now it looks like this. It's still technically blooming, still got flowers on it, but it's looking more like a heap than not. And it will bloom again, but I have to bite the bullet. And as I cut it back, so I'm cutting all of the extensions, all of this that's extended itself from the crown of the plant, I'm just shearing that all off. This with scissors, taking all that off. It's not going to look good for a week or so, but then it's all going to be lush green growth and it will bloom again. So sometimes you have to just bite the bullet and look the other way. That's what I did with the Crambe marinima. This is sea kale, a broccoli relative, cabbage relative, blooming white, real sweet smelling in late May and early June. And after it bloomed, I cut it back. I didn't take the picture from the same angle as Steve took a picture, but these are the leaves of that Crambe. There it is, behind the golden thyme and the woolly thyme, and in front of the, at that point, not yet blooming potentillas. And here's the potentillas blooming. There's the two thymes, and all of these big leaves that are growing back are the leaves of the Crambe. Primarily, I cut that and got rid of all of the flower stalks because I don't want another 1,000 Crambe marinimas all over the place. The bed is full enough, and I'm cultivating other plants that I want to fill in there. But also I cut it back because those blue leaves there are surrounded with, right there's a little bit of purple showing, are surrounded with Brodii, also called California hyacinth, a June-July blooming blue. It's purple, but most people go for that for blue. Those bulbs come up and they make a good combination with the CKL leaves. But if I leave all those flower stalks on there, the California hyacinth grows, it blooms, but it doesn't mind that nobody sees it because it's underneath everything. This way, it's more seen. And we posted quite a few articles about deadheading. This is one that came up about deadheading things that have started to bloom now, like the Gaillardia just started to bloom and the foxglove is just starting to bloom. And if you go onto our website and search for deadhead, you'll find 92 different things. If we named a picture deadhead something, it shows up. But that was the first one on the list. There's also webinar number 144 was all about deadheading, and there's a whole outline about deadheading. With lists of which plants we deadhead and why, and that's on the, ends up coming up on the search when you search the website. Also pictures of deadheading milkweed, potentillas, geums, coreopsis, kind of everything we could think of that we could show people what it looks like and how far you can cut it. Questions about deadheading or anything else? So quiet. Don't be so quiet. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it quite that way. Okay. That's a kiwi vine. The tips of the leaves are white and pink, and as the summer progresses and it starts getting warmer, the white and the pink go away, but they're still quite pretty. I've just this week been cutting back branches that, because it's a big vine, it wants to be a big vine. I want it to go over the arbor to the other side, so I keep grabbing the pieces and winding them further over. When Steve brought me this picture, I looked and I said, oh, how did I miss that one? Look at this guy going up and trying to grab hold of the fir. Which, if it did, it would be at the top of the fir, 60 feet away without any problem at all. Maybe I shouldn't have put it there, but it smells so sweet when it blooms. The bell-like flowers hang small, but in clusters. They hang under the branches, and when you walk under this arbor in the springtime, the smell of sweet, it's very sweet, herbal smell. It's really nice to do. So I put up with being a little crazy and having to be controlled. The calendula that self-sow in our garden just started blooming. This is our first calendula flower of the year. Pretty thing, backed up by all gold shore juniper, which is, thank you, Lori. You gave me a piece of yours because I had admired it in a nursery in Canada and couldn't find it here. but you had it in your yard, and I took a rooted piece. Now that it's big enough, I'm going to move it out. I'm going to replace Stelladoro daylilies with it because we don't need any more Stelladoros. We invited the caterpillars. Our garden is for wildlife, primarily birds, butterflies, and pollinators. That's our big focus. Although we do welcome in and put up with all the rest of them. So we invited them. Now we try to help them survive as much as we can to get them through to be butterflies. Our daughter Sonia has always has some inside. These are her. This is her Pearly Everlasting, where the American lady has knitted together leaves and is eating the growing point inside there. It's next to a vase with her monarchs. This monarch has crawled over onto the Pearly Everlasting. It's probably just about big enough to start to pupate, and so it's what we call wandering. But this one over here had curled up. You can only see part of it. She said she names her caterpillars. I never got into naming them, but these guys are named Alexander the Great, Philip, and I've forgotten what Alexander the Great's mother's name is. But she said these three, they are constantly curling up and falling off the plant, and I have to be rescuing them all the time. I don't want to have them in the house and have to keep finding food for them. I want to grow outside, grow them outside, support them outside. So I was walking past, we have dill seedlings that come up all over the place, and dill is one of the host plants for the black swallowtail caterpillars. And this is a black swallowtail. When it grows up, it'll be green and yellow, kind of a blue-green and yellow, very pretty big caterpillar. But this is probably its second instar. It started out as a tiny little thing, and now it's big enough that it's got a saddle. But it will change colors to those greens as it goes later. It's always amazing that they can blend in with a plant when they're such a different color, but they do, and you miss seeing them. And this one, if you look, I wasn't good at capturing both of them, but there's another one down there. I looked at them and said, what are you doing on the dill here? This dill isn't even, it's growing in between rocks that there's not even soil there. There's just a bunch of pine needles and things that have been pushed off the driveway into that area, pushed off the main part of the driveway, but that's asphalt underneath. And I said, these dill are never going to grow fast enough to support two of you guys to adulthood, so I'll have to watch them and move them to some other dill later, someplace in the garden. We've learned not to bring them in as caterpillars if we can help it, though. We try to bring them in, if we bring them in to raise like Sonia does, we bring them in as eggs, and preferably eggs that we saw being laid and that we collect right away, because very quickly these are parasitized by the various things that live on caterpillars. Sonia's had caterpillars eat for a while and then go as if to pupate, and instead of pupating, a tiny wasp emerges from their body. She's had them crinkle up and die before eating, getting into the pupating stage, and she's pretty sure they had a fungus infection. So it's best to bring them in when you can be fairly sure that you're not going to have to learn those other lesser fun parts of the ecosystem. How do you spot the eggs on milkweed? Generally, once you learn to see them, they are very easy to identify, but you need to see one of them first. They're almost always laid on the newest growth on the milkweed. The butterfly prefers that tender new growth because that's going to be the best part for the youngster to eat. So you look at the tips of plants when you go by. The egg is an oval, and it has facets. If you can see close, or if you, like me, you use a magnifier, it's a faceted oval. It has ribs, almost as if somebody cut a gem. It's just gorgeous. It is white, creamy white. And once you see one, you're fine. We do, I'll see if we have some time when I get through with the rest of the pictures. We have a Zoom video of monarch progression, and it starts with the egg. So I know we do have a picture right available that I can find if I get through this material first. Speaking of inviting the wildlife in, we haven't had a rabbit in the yard for a while. We have coyotes and foxes in the neighborhood, and we think they kind of took care of the rabbits but now we have a little rabbit living in the front yard and a big rabbit living in the backyard. And I had decided last year that I really like the Burning Hearts Heliopsis, and it does self-sow, and some of the self-sown seedlings have the dark leaves of Burning Heart. So I thin them out and let a few come in, but they appear to taste very good because you may be able to see these have all been cut off over here, where the rabbit cuts through. And I like to grow peanuts because they're just so cool in the fall. It's to me it's better than potatoes to dig up a peanut plant and find peanuts all around the ground. But peanuts appear to be very tasty, and this one hasn't been able to grow a leaf each day that the rabbit doesn't come and eat. It's kind of interesting. It also eats violets. I think, well, that's okay. I was crawling around underneath the junipers doing some weeding and saw, oh, somebody's been sitting under here eating the violets. And someone was eating, there are 2 goldenrods in another part of the garden. And one of the goldenrods hasn't been eaten at all because it's out in the open, where the rabbit would have to move out to the open. The other goldenrod is close enough to some other plants that the rabbit can quickly duck in there. So you can kind of put yourself in the animal's position and figure out how they do and what they do. Do you have to look every day for butterfly eggs, for caterpillar eggs? You do. I mean, they are being laid all the time. These black swallowtail caterpillars, I'm not watching it'd be just during daylight. I'm not watching 12 hours a day out there. Obviously, there have been black swallowtails. They're big caterpillars, blue and black, very pretty. But I haven't noticed any, and yet I've got the eggs out there. So you'd want to check regularly. And if you wanted to bring the eggs in to feed them yourself, bring in dill and feed them yourself, then yeah, you'd check every day to make sure that you got a fresh egg that was less likely to have been attacked by one of its predators. Spring has passed, and there's some kind of leftover questions. Marilyn, who may not be here tonight, I'll have to email her. Yeah, Marilyn's not here tonight. Marilyn sent this picture of her 9-bark. She said, I cut it back to the ground because it had gotten all raggedy and it's too big for the site, and it came back all flopped over. What's the problem? I hypothesized, if that's the right word, I've forgotten the hypothesis versus theory, that because it was this spring, before June, it was cold and wet for a long time after an initial warm-up, that this plant was growing these new stems when it was cool and very moist. So you had lush growth, but not enough warmth to ripen the stems, and that's why they laid down. Well, something I saw this week made me think, yeah, that's probably it. This is a beauty berry. I cut it to the ground every year, and normally it comes back like a low fountain. But in the part that's in the shade, those stems just laid down just like your 9-bark and are not standing back up again. And they were shaded, it was cold. I think that's probably all that was going on. This is a sweet shrub, Calycanthus hybrid, that I showed you earlier. It's a native crossed with its Asian counterpart. It's our native sweet shrub crossed with the Asian sweet shrub, and they call it either Aphrodite or Venus. I've forgotten. One of them is white and one of them is red. Aphrodite, I think. But if for whatever reason it died back, or mostly died back, you can see there's some leaves here and here and here. The stems weren't completely dead this spring, so I let it go. And now I'm going to have to sort out dead stems from all the live stuff coming from the bottom. But whatever happened over this winter, it affected plants that I haven't seen affected before. They're very pretty flowers, and they bloom for a long time, but it's a big shrub. I've seen them. It's got to be between 15 and 20 feet tall and across, so not something that you can tuck into a small corner. Sonia Sauter, you sent this picture of your forsythia and said, I cut it all the way back and now it's got these long shoots on it. Should I cut them back to 20 inches or so? Depends on what you want this forsythia to do the next year. You probably don't want it to spread out on the ground, so it would be a good idea to cut these back. It will get new growth now through the summer, and if you cut it now, there's enough time for the new growth that it generates to set flower buds for next year. So it's a good time to cut further if you're going to cut further. You don't have to, but you could cut further. This is a forsythia in a very restricted place at a client's house that we gardened at for many years. I would cut it back and it would grow back. This would be beginning of June. Here's beginning of July. Blooms the next year, blooms fully, all the way out to the tips, and then I chop it back again. Now it's chopped back, it grows back, and sometimes when it grows back, the stems lay down, they splay out more, as they do here, and in that case I cut them back to clean it up. Or sometimes I say, well, that's okay, you can stay there because I'm just going to cut you all out of there next spring anyway. So it's entirely up to you. And forsythia is so fast growing and such a big shrub if you let it grow that if you want to keep it small, you're probably going to need to cut it every year or every other year, and you should get comfortable with a lot of hacking because it is a lot of cutting back hard. I do it every year with our crabapple. This is all of this stuff hanging here is all brand new growth. Sometimes it's got 5 feet of new growth weeping off the ends before I get to it, and I try to get to it in July, and then I prune again to finish things up in the wintertime when it's dormant. But I try to cut in July because if I cut then, there's enough growing season left that the new growth that comes can harden off, ripen, and form flower buds if that's what it's going to do. Shaggy plants coming into July. Shaggy plants, this is, these yews are topiaries. Any fanciful shape, including these pyramids and meatballs that we make yews into, or here, this is believe it or not, this is a bee, 2 antennae, 2 wings sticking out in the body, and this is a butterfly at my kid's house. I cut them back in the winter thaw or early April, late March, and I already cut them this year, and now it's coming up to July and they're starting to get shaggy. You can cut them now to clean them up, but if you can wait just a couple of weeks, that's better because they're still growing actively. See the new soft, light colored leaves are the shoots that are growing out. So if I cut them now, when they first start getting shaggy, they're probably going to keep growing antennas and shagginess later on. If I wait just a couple of weeks until that growth begins to slow down and I don't see so much bright new growth, I'm going to more likely be able to cut them and leave them until next year. So if you can wait a little bit, but I know it's hard when they get both and really shaggy. We look at growth rate, how far something grows in a year. This is a redbud tree, and the new growth has no bark on it. So I can look and say, okay, you grew about 15 inches this year. Why do I want to know that? If something happens to the tree and you had to do something to a tree or to a shrub, you can compare last year's growth to the next year's growth and see if it's doing better or if it's getting worse by looking at growth rate. This tree, this is not this tree, it's actually another tree that I should tell the owner about, had a girdling root. See the root wrapped around the base of this one? And we took off the girdling root and want to see whether that makes a difference in the plant's growth. So took off the girdling root, measured the growth rate, said 12 inches, and then from here to where the bark changes color, and there's a scar along the outside edge. The pruning handouts that we have, the pruning outlines from our webinars, which are available on the webinars page to anyone who wants them, explain how you can go from year 1 to 1 year ago to back further, and you can look and see how much they've grown year by year, and then the next year you'll be able to compare how much they're growing now compared to their average growth rate over the years, and that will tell you if they're doing better or worse or they're just the same. So I've measured and Steve took pictures. We don't even need to write it down anywhere. We can just look up the picture and say, okay, Kent and Kent and Stacy, Kent and Aaron, their redbud. We'll be able to look it up on our catalog and show how much it's grown and take a look next year. No questions. Nope, nothing new coming in. This is foxtail lily, Eremiris. I like to call it Eremerus though, because to me it sounds like the song Eremerus, 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 Eremerus. It is an ephemeral, so it's going to bloom as it's doing now. These are done blooming right above, buds above there. They'll bloom for 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and then it just goes dormant for the year. It's a native of the high deserts in the Middle East, Iran, Turkey, even up into Pakistan, but the high desert areas. So it needs real sandy, well-drained soil, and then it's wonderful. If it's not good drainage, it won't make it though. This is Bergenia ciliata. It's a relative of the Bergenia cordifolia that most of the nurseries around here sell. Bergenia cordifolia is a shiny leaf that's evergreen and turns purple in the winter. It's going to be a nice thing to have in the garden. Bergenia ciliata gets a much bigger leaf. It's not evergreen, but it's an impressive plant, and it's marginally hardy for zone 5-6. So I thought, well, let's try it. Marginally hardy, and can it handle the drought? But I never really realized why it was Bergenia ciliata until Steve took this picture. So cilia are the little hairs on the leaf. Look at the hairs. It's a new leaf coming out. They're just all the way around the edge there. They're 5 o'clock shadow. Bergenia ciliata. It is going to be, well, it is fungus season right now, and it's probably going to be a bad fungus season. It was cold and wet for a long period of time after plants started to grow in the spring. They started early, there was a warm up, then it got cold and wet, and the whole time that it was cold and wet, those leaves, which were not mature yet, didn't have a fully formed cuticle, which is a protective barrier. Like our skin is a barrier. Our skin, they call the skin our largest organ. It protects us in many ways. The cuticle of the leaf protects the leaf. Without the cuticle formed and fungus spores splashing and drifting around during that whole period, a lot of leaves got infected. And as the summer gets warmer and the relative humidity kicks up, that fungus starts growing. On clematis, you might see this. This is not clematis wilt. This is almost certainly mildew. The leaves may not have turned white. They may have been killed by the mildew fungus before the mildew fungus even reached the stage where it could become white like that. But if it was wilt, the part of the stem that's infected would clog up the whole stem, and the tip would wilt over and die too. But this is just leaves dying along the way. Here's one of my clematis viticellas. They're resistant to wilt. It doesn't mean that they're resistant to mildew. And the center part here, where it was thickest and hardest for the air to move through, has gotten mildew on it. The rest of the plant is growing, coming up into the tree just fine. But mildew can kill a leaf before it gets to the white stage. The English call pulmonaria, Bethlehem sage, they call it hundreds and thousands. And can you see why? You see all the seedlings coming up. It wants to spread. I wanted to use it in our garden, but it's too dry in our garden. We don't water. And pulmonaria, when it has a moisture soil, just doesn't get this mildew like this. That's not mildew. That's a variegated bridal veil spirea. Spirea van Hoodii, also called snowmound spirea. Steve fell in love with the variegated form of it, and there's nothing, it's not sick, there's nothing wrong with it. That's just that splashed variegation on the leaf. We'll see how it grows. We had it, and it's also a pink flowering spirea. We had it up about 5 feet, and then when we had to have a couple of trees taken out, one of the arborists dropped a big chunk of the tree on it, so we cut it back, and it's growing back now. Lots of colorful foliage. I'm sure a lot of us are working on simplifying our garden. Okay, somebody's got their hand up here. Go ahead, Nancy, what's up?
So I have a couple of red buds that do not, all the lower branches look like they're dead. There's no leaves or anything. And it's a taller type. Can I cut all those other ones back and will it regrow?
If it's alive at the tip, and just lost the branches down further, there's no reason that those branches down further are doing anything other than cluttering the view, and you can go ahead and take them off. If the branch was hurt, that trunk was hurt, and it's kind of limping, like the leaves that are growing at the top are not strong and are not big, you might end up losing the whole limb, but it wouldn't be because you cut off the dead branches. It would be because the plant was in trouble. And redbuds do that. Redbuds often get killed back. There are people in the industry who call them dead buds because they have a tendency to die back, but then they grow back real quickly too. So yeah, go ahead and cut off what's dead. I waited until this week to cut off the dead on Lindera spice bush. We've got 2 here, and our friends have 3 in their garden, and they died back over the winter. Not all the way to the ground. Most of the stems died back, and they have just sparse foliage coming from here and there. I decided to let them go for a little bit to see whether or not they also sprouted from the bottom, because when they have weak wood like that, that's only partially leafing back out, I'd rather have stronger new wood. And they have now sprouted from the bottom. I said, okay, good. So I'm taking out more of the branches that are died back. So I would take out what's dead on the redbud and see what it does from there.
One other situation with it, it's in full shade underneath maple and catalpa trees. Does that make a difference?
It slows it down. Redbuds are natives of the edge of the forest. They like to grow with their roots in the cool forest, hanging out at the edge. And that's where they bloom the best. But they'll grow in the woods and wait for something to fall down around them. So it should be able to grow well enough there. It's just that it'll never be the fullest blooming and luscious growing redbud when it's underneath that many other big trees. Spice bush and arrowwood. Yeah, it is a good time to trim them back. Spice bush is the one that I was just talking about, Lindera. I just cut ours back after watching to see what was going to happen. At the Detroit Zoo, Priscilla can tell us if it's still there, we had spice bush up front and center, and we would cut it back hard after it bloomed every year. And sometimes that was right after it bloomed and we cut it in May, and sometimes we didn't get around to cutting it until later, but it always grew back and always bloomed quite well. So I would go ahead and do that. Arrowwood, you're sacrificing any berries that you might have this year on arrowwood, but most people don't grow arrowwood for the berry. I mean, it is a pretty blue berry, but most people are growing arrowwood more as a hedge plant, fall color, or maybe for the bloom in the spring, so they don't mind losing the fruit. But yeah, go ahead. If it's supposed to get into the 90s next week, you'd want to get things cut back while it's still moist and they can start recovering for a few days. So, let's see. Oh, Judith, go ahead. I see Judith's hand up, but so we'll wait for Judith.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. Hi. So I'm looking at my fothergilla bush, and it was pretty well encircled. The stems were pretty well encircled, and the bark chewed off by rabbits last winter.
Uh-huh.
And 2 out of about 3 of the stems, they're not exactly bare, but it looks as if they tried to grow leaves and tried to bud, and they just all went brown and crumbly.
Right.
The wood's not dead, but they just look very sick.
Yeah, that needs to be cut back.
Okay, down to the ground.
Yeah, down to below where it was girdled. What happens is the leaf is still alive, the leaf tissue, and the bud is alive on the branch, and the leaf does, and the wood can still absorb water and move the water from the roots up through the pith of the branch up to the leaf. So the leaf leaves out and it makes carbohydrates. Now those become starch, and it goes to send those back down to the roots, but those carbohydrates have to go through the cambium, the layer that's right under the bark. It's the only place it can travel, and that's what the rabbit or the mice ate. is the cambium. So the leaf can grow, but then it can't repay the roots for what they gave it, and the roots end up starving and dying. So you need to cut back that part and let it push out some buds from below the damaged area, which it should do if it's got any oomph left in it.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing much bigger leaves down at the base than I am on the stem that's not sick, that it actually is producing leaves
Yes.
and buds.
Yeah, not unusual at all when woody plants that don't bloom on brand new wood, it's not unusual for them to have really large leaves on the juvenile wood. Juvenile means not yet ready to bloom. I've seen oak leaves as big as dinner plates. I've seen catalpa leaves that big. I haven't seen a fothergilla do that, but that's what they do. So that's a good thing.
Oh, so I don't need to cut those back. I should just let them go do their green thing.
Yep, let them do their thing, but cut
Okay.
back those ones that are struggling.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's always bad to have these lopsided plants when this happens. So
Yeah, it's going to look really weird because
yeah,
half of it is going to be gone.
yeah. That's one of the when the spirea got smashed by the tree. I could have left one branch up, and I thought, how silly is that going to be to leave one branch up? I cut the whole thing down, and it's coming back. I figure it comes back more uniformly. Okay, celebrating achievements. A lot of us are trying to simplify our gardens. I had the advantage of moving after 39 years at one house, so I didn't have to so much as simplify what I'd already started as start simple to begin with. And I've been growing things. This is the 6th year that things have been planted there, and they're filling in now. Now it's becoming a full garden where there's less room for things to invade and grow weeds, and it's beginning to take care of itself. So this is my first year to truly see whether I estimated properly. Can I keep up with this planning it the way that I did? One of the things that I find very important, even in a garden where in most of the square footage that we have in garden at our new house right here, it's naturalized. I'm putting things in and letting them spread like ground covers. I'm letting them duke it out with each other. I'm just trying to stay on top of the weeds. But even in a place like that I'm not walking in and out of and working regularly, I want access. So I left the bottom of the ditch clear, except I got sappy with some of the plants and said, oh, you can grow there. Well, now I can't get all the way through there, and that becomes a problem. Things start coming up in the places that you can't reach, because you can't even see the path if you move over just a little bit. I can't get into this area, and the whole ditch was full of orange daylilies and crown vetch. When we got there, I dug that all out, and I saw not one daylily came back, and none of the crown vetch came back for over 4 years. And then crown vetch the seed must have been laying someplace, in one of those places I left bare, it came out. So now I have to get in there and make sure I get that crown vetch out of there. Pruning the witch hazel August or next March. Probably best if you're, depending on what you're going to do to a spring blooming plant like a witch hazel. If all you're going to do is take off some unnecessary wood, or reshape the plant, taking off branches that you don't intend to keep over the long run, August is a real good time to do that. Otherwise, wait until it blooms in the late winter, early spring, and then do any of your pruning afterwards so that there's enough time for it to form flower buds for the year after. Our thyme has made it all the way to the road. Those of you who've been with us for a while have watched as our planting along the road, as the golden thyme and the woolly thyme filled in, we just kept smothering or removing more grass and letting it move forward. And we're now at the edge of the road, and it's just wonderful. It's keeping itself in good shape and keeping the weeds out there. Couldn't ask for better. I did put the curly chives in for an extension of the blue kale and coarse texture, woolly thyme and fine texture, medium texture, and the curly chives appealed to me in terms of design characteristics. It's nice to have all those different foliage colors and different textures, coarser leaves and finer leaves. But for me, really important that it covers the ground. Same thing for our daughter Sonia. This is all gold juniper from that Canadian nursery that I couldn't bring it across, and Angelina sedum, adding a lot. They're filling in a lot of space. And now comes the time when we have to look and say, okay, do I want to give it all that space, or do I want to reclaim some of that space for some of my other plants that I want to grow, things that I like seeing as well. This is Burgarten sage. My Burgarten sage isn't blooming yet, but hers is blooming. And woolly thyme, grape hyacinths, pinks, dianthus, color guard, yucca coming up in here, some sea pinks, blooming pink right there. Steve is telling me that as we get into many of the ground cover areas that we have, and we played the game that we've told you, we call it See Who Wins. So in this garden, we planted big root perennial geranium, dwarf Solomon seal, big leaf aster, and green and gold back on the other side of the tree, green and gold or chrysogonum. This is native and this is native, these two are not. And Steve said, I think the geranium's going to win. I said, well, it could. I mean, we do say that taller wins and woody wins and evergreen wins. And it is taller, but the chrysogonum, the green and gold back here, is so thick and dense that the seedlings, these are seedling geraniums, which is how the geranium does most of its reaching out. Seedlings don't get started in there, so we're not, once it totally closes over, then we'll see who wins. Diane has been working for years to simplify her garden because it just had too many gardens and too many paths that got weeds in them and things they had to take care of. I couldn't find a picture of exactly the same, but this is this walkway over here and this arborvitae. That's the arborvitae, and the walkway used to be this gravel path, and gravel back here and gravel back around. See the sundial? And every bit of that gravel path was a place that had to be weeded. The shrubs were getting too big. It was a lot of hard decisions that she made over a lot of years in order to get it simpler to take care of. And it is getting simpler to take care of. And I think we forget, because it takes years for this to happen. This is 6 and 7 years work happening here. We forget how much we've saved ourselves. So it helps to kind of go back and look once in a while and tell ourselves we're getting there. Her garden used to go back through this gate. It went back, and she had vegetable gardens back there. That's now been turned back to grass in the back part here, because the vegetables that she wants to grow, she can grow along the side of the house. Those are decisions that we make, and we need to not cry about them so much as crow about them. I don't like bittersweet. This is the Asian bittersweet, which the birds drop the seeds all over in our garden and they come up. I'm just always thrilled though with how easy it is to tell it's a bittersweet by those bright orange roots, just like the bright orange of the berry that they have in this fall. Does thyme have to be grown on bare ground, Suzanne asks. I love it, but I can't seem to get it to take. Thyme needs full sun. That thyme in our yard and in Sonia's yard is in the full sun. It will grow in part shade, but it won't fill in thick enough to really keep other things from getting into that area. And it needs good drainage, because it is actually a shrub, thyme. It's not a perennial like daylilies are. It doesn't die back to a crown. It has wood and buds that live on the wood, and it needs that really good drainage, especially in the wintertime, to survive in the winter. So it might be that that you don't have enough open sun for it somewhere. Or it could be that the drainage isn't good, not good enough for it. This is Coryllis lutea, someone was asking. It's called golden bleeding heart, or It's not a bleeding heart, it's just a bleeding heart cousin. Corydalis is in the same family as bleeding heart, and that's Cory, like my son, Cory, Cory Dallas, Corydalis lutea, yellow. There's also a white one. There's some blue and purple ones. I think they're a very willing, cheerful plant to have in the shade, and they bloom for a long, long time. Corydalis lutea. Okay, different gardens. I was talking to neighbors about, one of the neighbors had gotten a copy of our book. She said, "Oh, you wrote a book." I said, "Yeah, we've written a couple of them." She said, "Well, this one's about how to take care of it." And I said, "Well, please be aware that I don't do everything the way that it says in there. That's for how to take care of a perennial garden. And a lot of our gardens out here are not perennial gardens. It's not which plants are in them, it's what we are managing out there. So my perennial garden is all around my blue branch and my patio. It's about 150 square feet. That's all the perennial garden I want. And that area I'm taking care of like in my book. In the spring, I cut things back, I divide things, I add new things, I get to play and fuss and do all of that kind of stuff. So this is in the springtime. This is right now. This lovage, this is the lovage coming up in early May. This lovage has already grown all the way up to 6 feet tall. It's bloomed, and I've taken out all of the blooming stalks. I just cut them out right to the ground, except a couple, ones that are wedged in with because I don't want those big tall stems laying on top of the Sedalia. I don't know what its other name is. Sedalia is a hollyhock relative. It's a cute plant and long-lived, better than hollyhock for me for that. I don't want the lovage stems laying on that, and then I have to stake both of them. And they also will lay on the variegated obedient plant. So I've crawled around in there and cut off those stems. Sedalia, this is variegated Physostogia. This is a peony. It could be a regular peony, but I don't want to stake it. I would if it was, because it's in my perennial garden, but it's an Ito peony on purpose so that I don't have to stake it. I'm using dark foliage in the center to just kind of make a sink in the center, back in black sedum, the October Daphne sedum down here. It just makes things darker and makes it a bigger void or bigger valley in the middle. And then my Gaillardia I'm letting spread. It's a wonderful plant if the drainage is really good because it blooms for a long, long time, along with Orange Perfection phlox, which blooms later and has a coral color to it that can go with the Gaillardia. There's also vernal sweet pea, some hellebores, some coral bells, a Roseanne geranium, some scabiosa, a whole just one and one. I have one of this, one of that, one of the other thing. That's a perennial garden. I get to play around in there. In the background is that sweet shrub that I told you about that died back part way, and I'll have to cut that back. This is the pincushion flower. That's the tall cut flower, pincushion flower, Scabiosa caucasica. I love it for being a long blooming plant, long stems for arrangements, a color that you can't really beat. I like having it there. Sunflowers come up everywhere in our garden. The birds drop the seeds all over the place. In most parts of our garden, I let them come up. Here, I'll leave them till they get to be about this size, and then if the deer or the rabbits don't eat them, because they do like those sunflowers, I'll pull them out, because this is my perennial garden. I don't really want it to go wild. At the back of the perennial garden, it's right there, back behind the blue branch. So it's the back end of the perennial garden. This is cup plant. Shouldn't be growing cup plant. It's way too big. The stems are easily 10 feet tall when they bloom. That'll fall all over everything. But I gave it a crutch in the front. I've got an old branch from a tree wedged in the front here. But even though I've got something to hold it up and it's got room to be by itself, I've gone in and I've cut all the weak stems out now. I just did this. And those stems on the outside that were most going outward, there's one right here, but were thick, I've cut back. I've cut them back to 2 feet tall. I know that they will sprout and grow again. I'll have some later bloom from that, but I don't need them sprawling all on top of the globe thistle and the turtle head that's here. But that's perennial garden management, where you're fussing and doing a little of this and a little of that with plants. Here's that sweet shrub, and we're on the back side of it now. I waited until it got big enough before I took the lilac in front of it out, because Nancy and I are good friends, but no reason to be looking into somebody's window. Don't you know that this winter it died back? That's how far it went back. Whoop, wrong way. And now it's coming back. So there it was in the spring when I was trying to decide what to do. There's still some foliage up top. It would have been easier if I'd cut it all down, but I'll cut it down. I'll cut down the dead stuff later on. And then I've got other places where this is a place in our backyard garden. This is a hydrangea, tardiva hydrangea. It's a late blooming panicle hydrangea. This is a hemlock. And this, I should be able to see, there they are. These leaves, this branch right here, and these leaves are a witch hazel. This area is witch hazel, hemlock, hydrangea. It is not, and there is back here an oak tree that we planted and an ironbark. It's not a garden, but while it's bare, while it has bare space and the shrubs are growing in, I've got stuff tucked in there that I'll enjoy for a while, but I will not fuss with it. I won't cut them down. I won't split them up in the spring. When the shrubs get bigger, I'll let them just die under there. That's a different kind of management than a perennial garden. And then there's utility turf. This is our lawn, and it's technically called utility turf when it's just green stuff mowed short. I was walking through with the dog the other day. We play frisbee out there. I said, oh, I've noticed this in the yard before. What is this growing in here? It's this. It's Potentilla indica. It's a creeping on the ground potentilla, nice bright yellow flowers. They call it fall strawberry because see the fruits? Technically they're edible, but they're dry as dust and have no taste to them. I think probably if you were trying to survive in whatever those reality shows are where they put people on it, you could eat it and they might keep you alive. But I don't mind at all. I have all different kinds of weird grasses out there. We've got potentilla, clover, medic, that's utility turf. It's okay with me. Other plants, this is one of our natural areas. We had, it was there when we got there, a native aster. That's this thin-leafed critter here. It blooms really late in the fall. It is loaded with pollinators. I said, well, you're staying. It's in a part of the yard that the former residents here didn't seem to want to mess with that part of the garden. And there are a lot of people in our neighborhood that do that. They're relaxed living. And so this wild aster is all over the place there. I introduced 2 stems of broadleaf mountain mint, one of the plants that I also love and the pollinators love. I stuck them in there and I said, okay, you duke it out with the aster. I looked earlier this year and thought, oh, it didn't work. The broadleaf mountain mint's not there. But if you step back and look, so here's the aster. There's last year's stems of the aster all over. There's probably there's probably 15 or 20 stems. Used to be 2 stems. Thank you, Michelle, for the start. But yes, it is holding its own and it is going to grow in there together. And I'm not going to do a darn thing. I'm not, other than the sticks that hit us in the face when we walk past the path back here. I don't even cut it down in the spring, in the fall or spring. In the neighbor's garden, I'm doing some selecting now. These are lupins, the biennial lupin, and now is the time to cut back the ones that you don't care to have those colors and favor the ones whose colors you do like. We like that deep red-violet color. We like the stark blue and white better than the blue and pink. And they are Uncle Axel's lupin. He, over the years, liked the purples and the blues and selected for those, so that's what we're doing. We get rid of the pinks. We don't let them go to seed. Because all the pea family plants, this is vernal sweet pea, that's what they're doing now. They're ripening those seed pods and popping out seeds all over the place. So now is the time that you want to get in there and sort out which ones you want to keep. I dug up one of the lupins for a neighbor who was going by and thought, oh, I have to see if I can show you this. So there's the root mass down there. And do you see the nodules? See this round part here and here, and this kind of tumorish looking part up here? Nothing wrong with this. These are the parts of the roots that have been colonized by the bacteria that live with pea family plants. Those bacteria can take nitrogen right out of the air, and so all the nitrogen that they excrete becomes available to the plant, which can't take nitrogen from the air. So those nodules are telling you this is one healthy growth of pea family plant there. Sometimes people tell me, well, lupins don't do well for me. It could be that you have to build up that colony of bacteria, and there are from some of the seed companies that sell culinary peas and beans, there are inoculants you can buy to put into your soil to get that started, because sometimes they don't take, and it's because they're just not getting enough nutrition. This is the perennial lupin that's native here. Uncle Axel's lupin came from Europe, Eurasia. This is our native lupin. It's much shorter. It's only in blue. And we really want this plant because it is a host plant for the Cardinal blue butterfly, and we're hoping one day to get that endangered butterfly to show up. So we've been thrilled that it likes it well enough here. It needs excellent drainage. We've got 60 feet of sand. It is native in our ecosystem. It was here before it was cataloged, surveyed here before the area was colonized. So we know it belongs here. It's taken for us. We're very glad that it is, and so we are watching for it when it goes to seed. We're watching for in the bare spaces. So here it is. There's the dark parts right there are the seed pods. It is now coming up here and here and here, all over through the garden, and that's what we want to have happen. So I am pulling other plants out of the way and favoring the lupin. And while I'm crawling around in here doing this, I'm hearing, I thought I heard a chipmunk. I said, well, somebody's in here eating. It was the seeds popping open, and I was lurking and trying to hunt an animal that wasn't there. But here's the first year seedlings of that perennial lupin coming up, and I've weeded things out around them. I've pulled the calendula back from them, taken oxalis out of the way, and mulched around them so that they can grow, so that we have more of them. And I do find I get more of those things. This is a heucherella. It's a cross between foam flower and coral bells with a nice yellow leaf. Whoops. And right there, there's a seedling. I haven't seen seedlings on the coral bells before. I've seen them spread in girth and bulk, but we're going to get a seedling coming up, and that's always fun to do. I like watching for those things. So Suzanne, I think I answered the question whether the lupins are native to Michigan. Only the short Lupinus perennis is native to Michigan. Pycnanthemum muticum. It is Pycnanthemum muticum, at least when I first learned the pycnanthemums or the broadleaf mountain mints, that's the one that I learned it from. There are other pycnanthemums. What the pycnanthemum is growing here? It's growing with a white aster. There are so many asters later in the year. I think it's aster, million stems. Its name means million stems, million stemmed aster, million flowered aster, milliflora. But it's one of our native asters. It just showed up there and we let it stay there. So that lupin is down here, and I'm asking it to fill in all areas there that we can get it to fill in. This is the sea kale, and then we get into the area where we have echinaceas, or purple coneflowers. Now this is Echinacea paradoxa, the yellow purple coneflower. And we put in, I think we put in 2 plants of paradoxa and 2 plants of pallida, pale purple coneflower. These are going to open and flex down. It'll look like a badminton birdie when they're down. Beautiful long stems high above the rest of the plant. As well as, so there's the pallida, the paradoxa is behind it. And in front of it, we planted from seed the straight Echinacea purpurea. purple coneflower. Here's one of them. And what we want is we want to see some hybridization. And we think we're seeing it now. Look at this one getting ready to open now. I said, oh, I can't wait to see what you're going to turn into. See it? And this is, for us, this is fun. And managing this garden is, as my friend Celia puts it, a matter of editing. I just say, no, enough of you. I'm trying to get this plant to grow in here. So I might yank some things out of the way, but I'm not in there weeding on any kind of regular basis. When I do, it's because, so here's the stems of the swamp milkweed. I told you a couple weeks ago about noticing the oriole female peeling these stems and using them to weave those hanging nests that they make, sack nests. So I leave these stems up, and sometimes, at some point during the year, those begin getting lax and falling into the way of the street or the neighbor's lawn. So now that the nesting season is over, I'm cutting some of those out of there and sorting my way. And as I did that and worked here up by the road, I said, oh, I forgot I put you in there. This blue showed up. I mean, it was there the whole time, but you really couldn't see it. There was so much other stuff in the way. And of course, neighbors started asking, because blue is one of those things that people notice. They said, oh, what is that? I said, that's sea holly. That's Eryngium amethystinum, amethyst sea holly. And I think when I put it in, I just wanted to see, would it grow? It's not native here, but it was a good blooming time. It's a good pollinator plant. Lots of little tiny flowers all around that cone. They're blooming from the bottom. These have bloomed down here. These haven't bloomed yet. These are all just in bud. So it's a good pollinator plant, a good color. Now that I see that it made it, I might put in a few more of those because it's a good carryover into the next season. It is sharp to work with, though. I mean, I'm in there. This is ironweed, iron butterfly, ironweed, and penstemon, and I'm in there chasing. There was some sow thistle that I could see, so I chased the sow thistle into there. And these sea holly bracts, they'll poke you in the back. They're not as bad as cactuses, but they're scratchy. So I'm not sure I'm going to put a lot of them in, but maybe a bit more. Amethyst sea holly. And then I have a lot of things that some people would consider maybe high maintenance. These are tricolored beeches. There are 4 of them, one here in a cage, 2 more down here. And my intention is to pleach them, is to take their branches and put them together and wrap them together with an injury. I'll injure the bark where they touch and wrap them together with some wax tape so that they grow together, and I'll have a living hedge there when these spruces, which are dying back to the top, as spruces often do, are gone. It'll be dicey getting them taken out without breaking the branches of the plants below, but to me, that's the fun part. Any questions? Isn't this a beautiful peony? Petunia? Diane, you told me the name of it, and I've forgotten now what it is, but it is gorgeous. And look what she put it with. I mean, talk about a gorgeous arrangement. The color of the pot, the color of the chair that is nearby is perfect. Isn't it great? So salvia, I always forget the names of plants that weren't there when I first started doing the annuals. You guys know the name of it. It comes in blues and purples, and Angelonia, thank you. Yeah. Gorgeous plant, isn't it? Gorgeous. This is Itea virginica, which is another great pollinator plant and another one of the natives, but it does like to sucker and spread. People need to know that and put it in a place where they can let it do that. I tried to get it along the lakefront at my son's house, but I do believe that it doesn't like the things that they put in the lake to kill the weeds. Beautiful, beautiful flowers, though. Lots of pollinators on them. This is the time of year when we're told if it's coming up to flower, it's easiest to control it now. Thistles, for instance. So if they're trying to create seed, quite often they are going to be easier to get rid of if you attack them while they're flowering. This is enchanter's nightshade. I've told you about enchanter's nightshade a few times because I've told you I hate these birds in particular. It is a native, it belongs, but I don't want it. It grows in the shade. It's not a sun plant. And this is probably the property line between our house and the neighbor's house, runs someplace around here. And actually 4 neighbors come together there. And this area gets a lot of enchanter's nightshade. It's our utility area. We stack our branches back here. Steve used to have the chipper back here. So we keep it mostly clear and just mulched. But that enchanter's nightshade is not only here coming up in our area, but it comes up all through these daylilies that are in the neighbor's yard and underneath these bushes that are in the neighbor's yard. I'm not averse to gardening in the neighbors' yards, but I don't want to start taking those on, so I will pull them while they're flowering so that I have fewer of the burrs, even if I have to put up with plants. So flowering, little tiny white flowers, nothing significant. But while they're flowering, that root that I've shown you before that grows and breaks off and stays in the soil is just developing. And they come out of the soil pretty easily, growing in loose duff in a shade garden. So you can literally grab the flowered ones and pull them out right away. Later on in the year, these break off, stay in the ground, and they become next year's plant. I didn't notice that some of them had already gone to flower. I missed that entirely. Sometimes I ask myself, how did they come up in this part of my garden? Well, get these guys to hitching a ride over to another part of the garden, that's what they will do. Questions? That's a Foxglove Penstemon, a Julia Childs Rose, and Veronica Skywalker Blue in the foreground. Tovara. I asked myself, why? Please, Holly, don't die all the way back. Why are you dying back? Maybe it's dying back so that the Tovara could take that space. I mean, it's just a pretty plant. Such a outstanding, dramatic foliage. Uh-oh. Harry's is a downy woodpecker. I think I got that right. It's the smaller of the two, downy and hairy woodpeckers. We will love watching them. Let's see. If you are wondering whether we are having another Free4All Friday, because people have said, is there a Free4All Friday this Friday? If you go to our schedule for webinars, at the bottom of the schedule, there is a calendar, and the green dots are all our webinars. So right now we're here at the end of June on the 26th. We're taking the 4th of July weekend off, and we have a webinar on the 11th, so there's no Free4All Friday on the 10th. So there's going to be a 2-week break before we see you again. Those who want to come on July 17th will be the next time that we have it. And this calendar is there if you click the schedule here. It's at the bottom of the page. Okay. Steve and I were at the zoo, and I didn't see this picture before, but Steve took the picture, and I laughed. I said, Steve, I think those are pandas. I think they're showing them chewing on bamboo. Those are foreigners, and they appear to have peeled the pond liner. Steve said, I didn't even notice that. I said, yeah. I said, it's going around. It must be happening all over the whole country. This guy's going to get arrested for taking a piece of that pond liner. We sure can get into some silly stuff, can't we? Okay, I think that's all that I have. Yep, that's all I have. If you don't have questions, oh my gosh, it's 8:15. How do I keep on going and keep you? I don't mean to do that. So that's all for this Free4All Friday. See you July 17th if you want to come to a Free4All Friday. Have a good 4th of July. If you are one of our webinar subscribers or you want to become one of our webinar subscribers, we've got Clever Containers coming up on July 11th. That's our 189th webinar. All of those webinars, their printed materials, are available for you to look at on our website. Just go to the webinars page and you can find all the schedules for each of the 7 years and click on links to go to the printed material, or you can join us for the actual video. Thank you. I'm glad that you are able to be with me. I love the pandas too. See you next 2 weeks, July 17th.